Entire cities built by gods and giants vanished without a single trace. The stories of these forgotten mythical civilizations represent the ultimate human mystery, the silent question of what happens when a society simply disappears. By the end of our journey, you will understand the powerful forces that can erase a civilization from the earth and what these lost worlds reveal about our own. We will explore sunken continents and cloud cities, examining why their legends persist and the tantalizing clues that hint at their existence. Why did a powerful naval empire sink beneath the waves in a single day? And what treasure lies hidden in a city made entirely of gold? What does it truly mean for a civilization to be lost to time? A gleaming metropolis of concentric rings vanishes beneath the waves in a single day and night. This is the enduring image of Atlantis, the civilization that has defined the very idea of a lost world for over 2,000 years. Our entire knowledge of this legendary empire comes from the Athenian philosopher Plato, who described it in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. He wrote of a powerful naval empire that existed 9,000 years before his own time, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar. This was not a simple settlement but a sophisticated society of immense wealth and advanced technology, its people grown arrogant and morally corrupt. Their downfall was swift and absolute, a divine punishment that saw the entire island sink into the ocean, leaving no trace behind. For centuries, scholars have debated whether Plato was recording a genuine historical catastrophe or crafting a brilliant philosophical allegory about the dangers of hubris. Some point to the massive volcanic eruption on the island of Thura, which decimated the Minoan civilization, as a potential real-world inspiration for the tale. Yet the true power of Atlantis lies not in its possible location, but in its function as a universal warning. What if this story is not merely a myth, but a profound echo from our past, a reminder that even the greatest of civilizations can fall? This legendary sinkage leads us to another civilization lost to the sea, one not of concentric rings but of golden spires. While Atlantis captured the Western imagination, another sunken continent emerged from the mists of the Pacific. Mu, sometimes called Lemuria, was envisioned as a vast tropical paradise, home to an enlightened race of giants and a society of profound spiritual and technological advancement. Its story began not in ancient myth, but in the 19th century with the controversial writer Augustus Le Plongeon. He claimed to have translated ancient Mayan texts that revealed Mu as the original motherland of all civilization, a place from which seafaring survivors carried their knowledge to Egypt and Central America. Around the same time, the scientific community itself gave birth to Lemuria. Biologists, puzzled by the presence of lemur fossils in both India and Madagascar, proposed a lost land bridge, a hypothetical continent that could explain the migration. This rational theory was soon adopted and transformed by spiritualists and theosophists, who envisioned Lemuria not as a land bridge, but as a spiritual utopia, a primordial world of psychic abilities and cosmic harmony. According to these legends, this paradise met a violent end, torn asunder by colossal volcanic eruptions and earthquakes so powerful they pulled the entire continent beneath the waves in a single cataclysm. Today, some believe the legacy of Mu persists not in physical ruins, but in strange energy vortexes and psychic echoes reported across the Pacific. The enduring power of Mu lies in its representation of a universal human longing for a unified world, a peaceful paradise lost to the relentless forces of geology. Could these stories be a fragmented, collective memory of a real landmass that once connected our world, a forgotten chapter in Earth's own biography? This dream of a golden age leads us from a sunken continent to a legendary city built from the very substance of its wealth. A letter began to circulate through the courts of Europe in the 12th century, a document of such extraordinary promise that it was copied and translated for hundreds of years. It was addressed to the Byzantine emperor from a figure known as Prester John, a priest-king who claimed to rule a vast and virtuous Christian empire somewhere in the distant Orient. His kingdom was described as a land of unimaginable splendor, a place where pepper grew like weeds and rivers of gold and jewels flowed through the streets. It was said to contain the fountain of youth and to be populated by fantastical creatures, including giants and men with the heads of dogs. But the true power of this legend was not in its wonders, it was in its promise of a powerful ally. For a Europe locked in conflict during the Crusades, the idea of a mighty Christian monarch ruling in the heart of Asia or later, as maps changed in the depths of Africa, was a beacon of profound hope. This was not just a story, it was a geopolitical fantasy, a potential savior waiting in the wings. The legend was likely born from a fusion of garbled travel accounts about Nestorian Christian communities in Asia and the deep eschatological yearning for a heavenly kingdom on earth. For centuries, popes and kings dispatched emissaries to find Prester John, their journeys pushing the boundaries of the known world. They searched from Central Asia to the Ethiopian highlands, but the kingdom always remained just beyond the next mountain range or across the next desert. The legend only truly faded with the dawn of the Age of Exploration, as European maps finally filled with real places, leaving no room for this mythical ally. The enduring search for Prester John reveals less about geography and more about the human spirit. It shows how powerfully hope can shape our perception of the world, driving us to seek reflections of our deepest desires in the blank spaces on the map. This quest for a heavenly kingdom of spiritual riches finds a compelling, earthly parallel in the obsessive search for a city of unimaginable material wealth. The legend of El Dorado began with a man, not a city. A Muisca chieftain, during a sacred coronation ritual, would cover his body in golden dust and become a living sun. He would then voyage out on a raft into the center of Lake Guatavita, plunging into the dark waters to wash the gold from his skin as an offering to the gods. This powerful spiritual act was witnessed by Spanish conquistadors, but their ears heard only one word, gold. Through layers of translation and fueled by insatiable greed, the story warped. The gilded man became a gilded king, and his kingdom became a city of impossible wealth, a place where gold was as common as stone. This phantom metropolis, which they named El Dorado, began to shimmer just beyond the horizon of every unexplored jungle. It drove men to madness. Gonzalo Pizarro led a disastrous expedition through the Amazon, where hundreds of men perished from disease and starvation, all while chasing this golden dream. Decades later, the English explorer Sir Walter Raleigh mounted his own costly searches, nearly bankrupting himself in a futile attempt to find a city that existed only on maps of desire. The true tragedy is that the real gold was all around them, in the masterful artifacts of the cultures they were destroying. The legend was a mirage, born from a fundamental misunderstanding of a sacred tradition and magnified by the conquistadors' own ruthless avarice. El Dorado stands as a permanent monument to the destructive power of obsession, a phantom that consumed lives and fortunes. It forces us to ask how many other lost worlds are simply stories we have told ourselves, reflections of our own fears and desires projected onto the blank canvas of the unknown. This obsession with a city of gold gives way to a fascination with a kingdom defined by its architectural audacity, a place not of wealth but of impossible stone. Beneath the churning grey waters of Cardigan Bay, the fishermen say you can still hear the bells. It is a low, mournful sound that rises with the tide, the ghostly chimes of Gwaelod, a lost kingdom swallowed by the sea. Welsh folklore paints a picture of a low-lying land of unparalleled fertility, a territory of 16 prosperous villages protected from the ocean by a great system of dikes and sluice gates. The safety of this entire world rested on the shoulders of one man, the watchman Sunken. One fateful, storm-lashed night, whether through negligence or drunken celebration, Sunken failed in his sacred duty. The sluice gates were left open, and the sea rushed in, devouring the fertile plains and bustling towns in a single, catastrophic flood. The stories preserved in ancient texts like the Black Book of Carmarthen tell of a land lost not to war or invasion, but to a simple, tragic human error. This is not a tale of divine punishment, but of profound fallibility. The legend is so persistent, so deeply woven into the local identity, that many believe it to be a folk memory of actual historical events. At the end of the last ice age, as glaciers melted, sea levels rose dramatically, inundating vast stretches of coastal land that early human societies once called home. Could the story of Sunken's failure be a poetic explanation for a real, slow-moving environmental disaster witnessed by our ancestors, a trauma passed down through generations in the form of a cautionary tale? The melancholic bells of Gwaelod ring with a chilling relevance today, a timeless reminder of the fragile boundary between human civilization and the power of the natural world. This story of a land claimed by the sea finds a different echo across the Irish Sea, where an island of scholars and saints vanished not into the water, but into a permanent, impenetrable mist. While the bells of Gwaelod echoed from a sunken past, another phantom haunted the Atlantic fog. Medieval nautical charts, drawn with painstaking care, consistently featured a strange circular island off the Irish coast. They called it Hy-Brasil, a name derived from the Gaelic for Isle of the Blessed, and it was drawn as a perfect circle split neatly in two by a central river. This was no ordinary landmass. According to the lore whispered among sailors, the island was perpetually shrouded in a dense, impenetrable sea mist, a veil that lifted for just one single day every 7 years. On that day, it revealed itself as a paradise of eternal youth and beauty, a realm untouched by death, suffering, or the passage of time, governed by a race of enlightened beings or a solitary, powerful druid. This was not a story of a civilization that fell, but one that existed just beyond the periphery of human perception, a permanent refuge from the hardships of the mortal world. The legend proved so compelling that it launched very real and very costly voyages of discovery. The renowned explorer John Cabot himself reportedly led an expedition to find it, hoping to claim its riches and glory, and other documented searchers set sail with the same fervor that drove men to seek El Dorado. Yet Hy-Brasil always melted back into the mist, its location shifting just beyond the reach of every map. It was only when navigational techniques advanced and the Atlantic was thoroughly charted that the island finally and reluctantly faded from the world's maps. The enduring power of Hy-Brasil lies in its poignant symbolism. It is the ultimate earthly paradise, a manifestation of our deepest yearning for a sanctuary free from sorrow and decay. Why do we continue to project our hopes onto these blank spaces, searching for a perfection that our own world seems to deny us? This quest for an island of enlightened beings naturally draws our gaze to a civilization defined not by eternal life, but by the immense weight of its own knowledge. The epics of ancient India describe a world that feels strangely familiar to our own. In the Ramayana and Mahabharata, we find tales of the empire of Rama, a civilization of immense scale and sophistication. Its cities were marvels of urban planning, with grid-like streets and advanced sanitation systems that would not be seen again for thousands of years. But the most startling descriptions are of their technology. The texts speak of Vimana's intricate flying machines that soared through the skies, and of weapons so devastating they could level entire armies with the power of a single projectile. These are not described as magic, but as technology, machines of war and transport built upon principles of science that we would only come to understand in the modern age. The most chilling accounts tell of a final, apocalyptic conflict between the great heroes, a war that used these terrible weapons and left the land poisoned and barren. This legendary destruction finds a haunting echo at the real-world archaeological site of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the major cities of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. There, sections of the ancient city show signs of vitrification, where stone structures have been fused into glass by intensely high heat, a phenomenon that some researchers, albeit controversially, have linked to a sudden, catastrophic event. While mainstream archaeology points to more gradual causes for the decline of the Indus Valley peoples, the theory of Rama presents a captivating, if unsettling, possibility. It suggests that our own cycle of technological advancement and destructive potential is not unique, that it may have all happened before in a forgotten age. Are these ancient texts merely grand myths, or could they be a distorted, poetic history of a real Bronze Age culture that achieved a level of knowledge we thought was ours alone? The idea of a society brought down by its own inventions leads us to a place of immense and silent stone, a kingdom that chose to build its legacy not with machines but with pillars that touch the clouds. For the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt, one destination shimmered on the horizon like a mirage of pure abundance. This was the land of Punt, a real and mystical trading partner whose exact location has been completely erased by time. The Egyptians did not merely trade with Punt, they revered it. They called it the terraces of incense, and they considered it the ancestral homeland of their own gods. The most detailed account of this relationship comes from the mortuary temple of Pharaoh Hatshep, set at Deir el-Bahari, where a magnificent relief depicts a great naval expedition returning from Punt, its decks laden with wonders. The carvings show towering myrtle trees, their roots carefully bored in soil for the long journey, stacks of ebony wood, piles of gold and ivory, and exotic animals like leopards and baboons. This was not a simple barter mission. It was a state-sponsored endeavor to bring the very essence of divine favor back to Egypt. The people of Punt are shown living in beehive-shaped huts built on stilts along a jungle river, a detail so specific it feels like a snapshot from a lost world. Yet for all this vivid documentation, the actual location of Punt is one of Egyptology's most enduring puzzles. Was it in the Horn of Africa, perhaps modern-day Somalia or Eritrea? Could it have been across the Red Sea on the Arabian Peninsula? Or did it lie even further south in the coastal regions of Kenya or Tanzania? Each theory has its proponents, but no single site has ever been conclusively identified as the legendary Punt. The civilization itself seems to have vanished, not in a cataclysm, but simply by fading back into the landscape, its unique cultural identity absorbed by its neighbors or transformed beyond recognition. Why would such a crucial partner, so integral to Egypt's economy and spiritual life, disappear so completely from the historical record? The answer may lie in the very nature of trade empires. Punt might not have been a single city or even a unified kingdom, but a loose confederation of coastal trading ports, a network that eventually dissolved when trade routes shifted or when the demand for its unique goods changed. The loss of Punt represents the fading of a golden age of exploration, a tangible connection to a world of wonder that simply closed its doors. Our search for this tangible trading partner now shifts to a far more ethereal and philosophical realm, a kingdom not of gold and incense, but of a single, perfect moral law. High in the thin, cold air of the Himalayas, a different kind of paradise was conceived, one built not on gold or power but on perfect peace. James Hilton's 1933 novel, Lost Horizon, gave it a name that would echo through the 20th century, Shangri-La. This fictional lamasery was a sanctuary hidden in the Valley of the Blue Moon, a place where time itself seemed to slow, allowing its inhabitants to live for centuries in a state of serene contemplation, insulated from the wars and strife of the outside world. But Hilton's brilliant creation was merely a new vessel for a much older, far more profound idea. He tapped directly into the ancient Tibetan Buddhist legend of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom of enlightened beings nestled somewhere beyond the snow-capped peaks. According to the Kalachakra teachings, Shambhala is not a place one can find on a map, but a spiritual realm that will only reveal itself to the world when humanity has sunk into its darkest age, at which point its king will emerge with a vast army to defeat the forces of ignorance and restore a global golden age. The power of Shangri-La, then, lies in this fusion. It takes a timeless spiritual prophecy and gives it a physical, almost attainable address. It answers a desperate, modern longing for a refuge, not just from conflict, but from the relentless rush of time and the corrosion of progress. We see this longing reflected everywhere, from the names of hotels and retreats to its enduring presence in films and books. The question is not whether a specific lamasery called Shangri-La exists, but why this story feels so persistently real to us. Is our endless fascination with finding this hidden valley actually a misdirected search for a state of mind, an inner peace we project onto the most remote and inaccessible corners of the globe, hoping the landscape itself can grant the tranquility we struggle to cultivate within? This dream of a sanctuary beneath the mountains compels us to consider another legendary refuge, one that sought its isolation not in high valleys, but deep beneath the rolling waves of the Atlantic. The bells of Wise are said to ring only for the dead. In the haunting legends of Brittany, this was a city more magnificent than any other, a marvel of engineering built below the level of the sea. Its survival depended entirely on a single, massive dike, a colossal gate that held back the cold Atlantic waters. The key to this vital barrier was not kept by the king, but entrusted to his daughter, the Princess Dahat. Here, the myth takes a dark turn. Dahat, seduced by a mysterious knight who was in truth a demon, stole the key from her father as he slept. In a moment of reckless passion, she handed it over to her lover, who immediately threw the gates wide open. The ocean did not merely trickle in, it roared through the streets in an unstoppable deluge, swallowing palaces, towers, and the entire population in a single, terrible night. Only the king, Gradlon, escaped, riding to safety on his magical horse as the waves crashed behind him, his drowned daughter clinging to his back until he was forced to cast her into the sea to save himself. This story is a cornerstone of Celtic mythology, but its themes are universal. For centuries, it was interpreted as a stark Christian cautionary tale, a warning against sin, paganism, and the perceived dangers of unchecked female agency. The city's decadence, embodied by the flawed princess, demanded divine punishment. Yet beneath this moral layer, many hear the echoes of a real geological event. The proposed location for Wise is the Bay of Douarnenez in France, a region where coastal erosion and the memory of ancient tsunamis could have forged a powerful folk memory of a lost Roman or pre-Roman settlement. The narrative of a proud city drowned for its sins is one we have seen repeated across the globe, from Atlantis to Gwaelod. What is it about these sunken cities that captures our collective imagination so powerfully? Perhaps it is the chilling finality of their demise, the idea that the very element that gives life can also take everything away, leaving only a ghostly echo beneath the waves. From this drowned Breton city, our search for the forgotten pulls us from the deep sea to a shimmering desert mirage. The desert sun can erase more than just footprints. Deep within the vast, trackless expanse of the Arabian Peninsula's empty quarter lies the spectral echo of a city built on hubris. Known as Iram of the Pillars, this fabled metropolis was the domain of the tribe of Ad, a people of immense physical strength and towering architectural ambition. Their city was said to be a paradise of lush gardens and grand palaces supported by colossal columns, a testament to their wealth and power. But according to the Quran, their greatest sin was not their construction, but their arrogance. They turned away from divine guidance, believing their own works made them invincible. For this, they were punished by a divine wind, a savage, sand-laden sirocco that screamed for 7 nights and 8 days, burying the entire city and its inhabitants beneath the dunes. It vanished so completely it earned the name the Atlantis of the Sands. The legend proved so compelling that it drove explorers for generations, most famously T.E. Lawrence, who dreamed of uncovering its ruins as the ultimate archaeological prize. In the 1990s, satellite imagery and ground surveys did identify a significant ancient trading hub at a site known as U-Bar, a place that showed clear signs of having collapsed into a sinkhole. While some heralded this as the discovery of Iram, the evidence remains fiercely debated. The true power of Iram, however, lies not in its potential coordinates, but in its enduring role as a powerful Islamic parable. It is a stark lesson on the transient nature of all worldly power, a warning that building a civilization on sand, both literal and metaphorical, invites a cataclysm. The desert guards its secrets well, leaving us to wonder if the colossal pillars of Ad still stand somewhere beneath the shifting sands, a silent monument to the fate that awaits the proud. As the desert sun sets on this legend, our search for the forgotten turns toward a colder, more enigmatic kingdom, one that sought its fortune not in sand, but in ice and shadow. The frozen sea described by Pythias was more than a navigational hazard. It was the very boundary of the world itself. For the ancient Greeks, the name Thule represented the absolute limit of exploration, a land of perpetual mist and midnight suns lying 6 days beyond the northernmost shores of Britain. This Ultima Thule was not so much a place as an idea, the final blank space on the map that whispered of everything we did not yet know. Its identity was always fluid, a shifting phantom that later generations would associate with Iceland, Norway, or the vast, icy coasts of Greenland. Yet this classical concept of a geographical frontier was tragically corrupted in the 20th century. Esoteric societies and later the Nazi regime seized upon the name, weaving a dangerous fantasy of Thule as the primordial homeland of a superior Aryan race, a pure Hyperborean civilization lost to time. This sinister appropriation added a dark and lasting stain to the legend, transforming a symbol of human curiosity into one of poisonous ideology. The profound tragedy is that the real Thule was probably never a single, great civilization at all, but rather the amalgamated memory of northern lands glimpsed by early explorers. It stands as a powerful testament to our innate need for frontiers, for that distant horizon which promises mystery and meaning. When one edge of the map is finally filled in, we simply invent another, projecting our deepest fears and our most fervent hopes onto the next unknown. This ancient longing for a land at the very edge of existence makes us wonder about places that predate all our maps, civilizations so old their memories are written not in stone, but in the land itself. While Thule represented the known world's chilling edge, Greek mythology spoke of a paradise that lay even further north. Hyperborea was a land beyond the reach of Boreas, the bitter north wind, a sun-drenched utopia of eternal spring and perfect health. The poets Pindar and Herodotus described it as the home of a race of giants and demigods, a people who lived for 1,000 years in uninterrupted peace and joy, devoting themselves to the worship of the god Apollo. It was said that the Hyperboreans sent mysterious, shrouded offerings of wheat to his sacred shrine at Delphi, gifts that passed through the hands of neighboring tribes in a chain of reverence, their exact origin forever veiled. This was not a civilization one could simply sail to. It was a spiritual destination, a reward for the virtuous or the chosen. The name itself, Hyperborea, translates to beyond the north wind, a description that logically placed it in the Arctic. Yet, for a land supposedly locked in ice, the classical accounts are filled with contradictions, describing a warm, fertile paradise where the sun shone 24 hours a day. This has led to endless speculation, with some identifying it as ancient Britain, Scandinavia, or even a hypothetical Arctic continent from a time when the climate was radically different. The true power of Hyperborea lies in its function as the ultimate Golden Age archetype. It represents a humanity untouched by the curses of toil, disease, and conflict, a perfect society that existed before a great fall from grace. It is the collective dream of a life without struggle, a memory of a time when the gods walked openly among a blessed people. Could these stories be a faint cultural echo from our deep past, a folk memory of a period when the far north was indeed warmer and home to early, migrating cultures whose existence was later mythologized? This vision of a peaceful northern sanctuary finds its dramatic opposite in a southern empire forged not in peace, but in relentless, bloody conquest. Far to the south of India, the ocean whispers of a different kind of library, one submerged not in philosophical allegory, but in the salt water of cultural memory. Tamil legends speak of Kumari Kandam, a vast continent that once bridged the Indian subcontinent with Madagascar and Australia. This was the heartland of the ancient Tamil people, a place where the first and second Sangams, or great academies of poets and scholars, flourished. These assemblies were said to be the custodians of an immense literary and scientific heritage, producing tens of thousands of poetic works that explored every facet of human existence. Then came the deluges, a series of catastrophic floods that tore the continent apart, swallowing the great academies, their priceless texts, and the entire civilized landscape beneath the rising waves. The story, as it exists today, is a powerful blend of ancient Tamil literary references to lost lands and a 20th century reinterpretation that drew direct inspiration from the scientific hypothesis of Lemuria. It became a potent symbol in Tamil nationalist discourse, a narrative of a glorious, sophisticated past deliberately erased by the sea, a trauma that explained the dispersal of the Tamil people and fueled a sense of cultural pride and resilience. Geologists assure us that no such continent existed in the time of human civilization, that the land connections were severed by plate tectonics millions of years before humanity walked the earth. Yet, the persistence of the legend is what truly matters. It functions as a profound metaphor for the universal experience of coastal peoples, a deep-seated cultural memory of lands lost to rising seas at the end of the last ice age. It is a story of origin and diaspora, of a golden age located not in the future but in a sunken past. Is Kumari Kandam a literal lost continent, or is it the poetic soul of a people, a way of giving tangible form to the ache of migration and the dream of a unified homeland now scattered across the waves? This profound connection to a drowned world lifts our gaze from the ocean depths to a kingdom suspended among the mountain peaks. Deep within the emerald labyrinth of the Musquisha rainforest, a legend refused to die. For centuries, locals and explorers whispered of a lost Ciudad Blanca, a white city of immense wealth, its stone buildings gleaming pale against the dark jungle. Some called it the city of the monkey god, a place of such power and isolation that it was protected by ancient curses. This was not a sunken continent or a floating island, but a terrestrial secret, a civilization that had turned its back on the world and was swallowed not by water, but by relentless vegetation. The stories drove men to obsession, luring expeditions into one of the most impenetrable jungles on Earth, where snakes, disease, and treacherous terrain guarded the secret as effectively as any mythical spell. The breakthrough came not with a machete, but with a laser from the sky. In 2012, a team of researchers employed Lyonesse, a sophisticated technology that uses laser pulses to digitally strip away the forest canopy, revealing the contours of the ground below. What appeared on their screens was breathtaking. Hidden under the dense green roof were the unmistakable geometric shapes of a sprawling urban center, complete with plazas, earthworks, and a large pyramidal structure. This was not a single white building, but the ghost of an entire society, a complex pre-Columbian culture that had flourished in total isolation and then vanished, abandoned long before any European ever set foot on the continent. The civilization of the White City represents a profound category of loss, the silent collapse of sophisticated societies across the Americas that rose, built, and declined without leaving a written word. Their entire history is encoded in the land itself, in the arrangement of their plazas and the soil of their mounds. The discovery proves that some legends are not mere fantasy, but faded memories of real places, waiting for the right moment and the right technology to be pulled back into the light. It forces a humbling question: how many other mythical civilizations are still out there, their stories preserved only in the whispers of the jungle, just waiting for us to learn how to listen? This earthly mystery of a culture lost to the forest finds a strange and compelling parallel in a story not of our world, but of the cosmos itself. Beneath the familiar crust of our world, legends whisper of a kingdom even more vast than those on the surface. This is the Agartha network, a sprawling subterranean realm said to be illuminated by a central, inner sun, its light sustaining an ancient and impossibly advanced civilization living in a labyrinth of deep tunnels. The concept captured the modern imagination through the writings of explorers like Ferdinand Ossendowski and Nicholas Roerich in the early 20th century, who told of a hidden world accessed through secret passages in the Himalayas or the Gobi Desert. At its heart rules the mysterious king of the world, a being of profound wisdom and power who silently guides the spiritual destiny of those of us living on the surface. This mythology is not a modern invention, but a powerful synthesis of ancient Buddhist and Hindu traditions that speak of vast, hidden underworlds like Shambhala. It seamlessly intertwines with other hollow earth theories, suggesting our planet is not a solid ball of rock, but a hollow shell containing entire continents and oceans within, lit by that miniature interior star. Agartha represents the ultimate expression of our fascination with what lies beneath our feet, the final frontier that is as much psychological as it is physical. It is a realm of hidden knowledge and potential salvation, a place where all the lost wisdom of the ages might be preserved. Is the relentless search for Agartha, then, really a search for a hidden part of ourselves, for a depth of understanding we fear we have lost on the sunlit surface? From the world below, we return to a civilization lost in the far more ancient mists of time. Beyond the known world's edge, where the sun dipped into the ocean each night, lay a garden that was also a kingdom. The Hesperides was not a civilization of cities and kings, but of nymphs and a single, sacred tree. Its golden apples shimmered with the promise of eternal life, a treasure so profound that the goddess Hera placed it under the guardianship of these ethereal beings, daughters of the night itself. This was more than an orchard, it was the very embodiment of an unspoiled world, a land of perpetual sunset where bounty and divine favor were the only laws. Often placed by poets in the remote Atlas Mountains of North Africa, the garden represented a paradise that existed just beyond the borders of human knowledge, a place where magic was still woven into the fabric of the land. The civilization of the Hesperides, then, was this harmonious existence. Its disappearance was not a cataclysm of fire or flood, but a slow fading, As human explorers charted the coastlines and mapped the mountains, the realm of the nymphs contracted. The magical gave way to the geographical, the divine mystery explained away as mere legend. The loss of the Hesperides symbolizes the price of exploration, the quiet tragedy that occurs when every blank space on the map is filled in. What happens to our capacity for wonder when there are no more edges to the world, no more secret gardens waiting in the west? We are left with a planet that feels smaller, its mysteries solved, its magic rationalized. The quest for a fruit that grants immortality inevitably shifts our focus to a city whose very walls were said to be forged from a different kind of eternal substance. The same ocean that swallowed Cantre'r Gwaelod also drank a kingdom of knights. Lyonesse was the fabled homeland of Tristan, that tragic hero of Arthurian romance, a land of rolling hills and grand castles situated in the fertile plains said to connect Cornwall to the Isles of Scilly. In legend, it was a place of high chivalry, its doom as swift as it was absolute. A single monstrous storm surge, sometimes blamed on a great sin, swept over the low-lying land, drowning every village, forest, and proud citadel in one terrible night. All that remained was the granite spike of the Scilly Isles, a lonely tombstone for a world of lost romance. This narrative is a quintessential Celtic inundation myth, a sister story to the Welsh tale, almost certainly inspired by the same geological realities. As Ice Age glaciers melted, sea levels rose relentlessly, slowly, and then suddenly claiming vast tracts of coastal farmland that prehistoric communities had cultivated for generations. The memory of watching the sea claim their world, field by field over centuries, was compressed in folklore into a single, catastrophic event, a narrative device to make sense of an unstoppable environmental force. Lyonesse, however, carries a unique emotional weight. Its loss is not just the loss of land, but the loss of the Arthurian ideal itself. The drowning of this beautiful, chivalric realm echoes the inevitable fall of Camelot, a double tragedy where both the seat of power and one of its foundational territories are erased, first by water and then by time. Why does the image of a sunken land resonate so deeply with our sense of tragedy and lost glory? Perhaps it is the utter finality of the sea, a grave that permits no monuments and offers no return, transforming vibrant life into silent mystery. The waves that closed over Lyonesse's castles are said to guard another sunken marvel, one forged not from stone but from metal. A city of the dead stands silent in the heart of the desert, its walls forged not from common stone but from burnished brass. This is the mythical city of brass, lifted from the pages of the 1001 Nights, a metropolis of unimaginable wealth and terrifying solitude. In the tale, a company of explorers, led by a determined emir, finally breaches its legendary walls only to find a necropolis frozen in time. The streets are lined with palaces of metal, and the squares are filled with incredible automata, mechanical men and women crafted with such artistry they seem alive, yet they are motionless, guardians of a treasure with no owner. The true horror and the true lesson lies within the grand halls. There, the long-dead citizens of this empire are preserved upon their thrones and couches, still clad in robes of gold, their final expressions a permanent testament to the shock of their demise. Everywhere, the explorers find inscriptions carved into the brass walls, poetic warnings that speak of the vanity of earthly power and the absolute certainty of fate. The city itself is a tomb, and its vast treasuries of jewels and gold are rendered utterly useless, a cruel mockery of the avarice that once built this place. The story serves as one of literature's most powerful memento mori, a reminder of death that strips all worldly ambition of its meaning. Its location, often placed in the desolate sands of North Africa, reinforces its purpose as a universal parable. A civilization that believed its metal walls and material wealth could protect it from decay learned the final, hard lesson that nothing can. What value does a mountain of gold hold for those who are no longer alive to appreciate it? The city of brass does not ask us to abandon ambition, but to remember that all our works, no matter how grand, are temporary. This haunting vision of a metallic ghost town finds a stark opposite in a legend of a city that was not built from metal, but one that was, according to lore, literally brought to life. Across the fertile river valleys of North America, the earth itself was sculpted into monuments. When European settlers first pushed into the Ohio and Mississippi valleys, they were confronted by a landscape they could not explain. They found vast geometric earthworks, colossal animal-shaped effigies stretching hundreds of feet, and enormous flat-topped pyramids that rivaled the structures of the ancient world. To these newcomers, such sophistication seemed impossible for the Native American communities they were displacing. Their own racial and cultural prejudices led them to invent a comforting fiction, the myth of a lost, light-skinned mound builder civilization. This imaginary race of advanced architects and astronomers was said to have been brutally wiped out by savage indigenous hordes, a narrative that conveniently painted the current inhabitants as illegitimate and justified their removal from the land. It was a story built not on evidence, but on the desperate need to see the continent as a blank slate, its true history erased to make room for a new one. We now know, through extensive archaeology, that these incredible earthworks were constructed by the direct ancestors of modern Native American nations. Sites like Cahokia, near present-day St. Louis, was once a metropolis larger than London was at the time, a thriving hub of trade, ceremony, and governance centered around Monk's Mound, a colossal earthen pyramid that still stands 10 stories high. The rise and fall of these complex societies was a slow, cyclical process driven by environmental change, resource management, and social evolution, not a single, violent invasion. The real mystery of the mounds is not who built them, but why we were so determined to invent a fictional builder. It forces us to ask how our own deep-seated biases can blind us to the truth, transforming magnificent human achievements into political weapons. This pattern of a great civilization flourishing in a landscape we once thought too wild to support it finds a stunning parallel deep in the heart of another continent. The dense canopy of the Amazon has long guarded its most profound secret. For generations, the prevailing wisdom declared this immense rainforest a counterfeit paradise, a place where the poor soil could never support the sprawling cities and complex societies found in other parts of the ancient world. It was a landscape seemingly designed for small, nomadic tribes, not for grand civilizations. This assumption was so powerful that legends of golden cities hidden in the jungle were dismissed as pure fantasy, the fevered dreams of conquistadors blinded by greed. Then came the lasers, recent LiDAR surveys which strip away the vegetation with invisible light, have revealed a truth far more astonishing than any myth. The images showed not a single lost city, but a vast, interconnected network of settlements, roads, and sophisticated earthworks sprawling across the basin. This was not the El Dorado of legend, a place of passive wealth. This was a civilization of profound activity, a society that had mastered the jungle itself. They built precisely aligned roads that connected ceremonial centers, residential hubs, and fortified villages across dozens of miles. They constructed massive geometric earthworks and intricate water management systems that turned seasonal floods into a resource. Most remarkably, they transformed the very earth, creating a uniquely fertile soil known as terra preta, or black earth, by slowly enriching the ground with charcoal, pottery shards, and organic waste. This self-made soil allowed them to sustain what archaeologists now believe were populations numbering in the millions, living in what can only be described as garden cities woven seamlessly into the fabric of the forest. They did not conquer the Amazon, they collaborated with it, developing a form of urbanism in perfect harmony with their environment. The tragedy is that we will likely never know what they called themselves. Their civilization was almost certainly one of the first and most devastating casualties of the Columbian Exchange. European diseases like smallpox and measles, arriving decades ahead of the explorers themselves, swept through these populated corridors with apocalyptic force. The garden cities emptied, the managed forests reclaimed the plazas and roads, and the knowledge of this vast civilization vanished so completely that its existence became a mere rumor, a ghost in the machine of history. Its discovery forces a complete re-evaluation of human potential. It proves that the tropics were not a barrier to civilization, but a cradle for a uniquely sustainable form of it. The true city of Z was not a place of gold, but a way of life, a testament to human ingenuity that flourished for centuries before being silently erased by a microscopic invader. What other revolutionary chapters of the human story are still hidden, not under sand or water, but beneath the living green roofs of the world's remaining rainforests? The Amazon's vanished millions point us toward a final, chilling landscape of isolation. Their silent stone halls still stand in the Greenland fjords, a stark monument to a civilization that did not vanish in a single cataclysm, but faded away through a slow, grinding struggle against a changing world. This was the Norse settlement of Greenland, a European colony established by Eric the Red in the late 10th century. He called this vast, icy land Greenland as a clever piece of marketing to lure settlers from Iceland, promising fertile pastures. For nearly 500 years, these two communities, known as the Eastern and Western settlements, endured. They built churches and manor houses from stone, raised cattle and sheep, and traded valuable walrus ivory and narwhal tusks with the homelands. They were not a mythical people, but a documented society with bishops, trade contracts, and regular communication. Then, in the 15th century, the ships simply stopped coming. Radio silence fell over the settlements, and when explorers finally returned, they found only empty buildings and the chilling quiet of abandonment. The mystery is not that they left, but why they ultimately failed after so many generations of survival. The leading suspect is a dramatic shift in the climate, a period now known as the Little Ice Age. As temperatures dropped, the sea ice expanded, making the treacherous voyage from Iceland and Norway even more dangerous and less frequent, cutting off their vital trade links and contact with the outside world. The growing seasons shortened, making it impossible to grow enough fodder to sustain their cattle through the harsh winters. At the same time, the very foundation of their economy crumbled. The market for walrus ivory collapsed as cheaper elephant ivory from Africa flooded the European markets, stripping the Greenland Norse of their primary source of wealth to import essential goods like iron, timber, and grain. Yet climate and economics alone do not tell the whole story. The Norse were not alone on the island. The Thule people, the ancestors of the modern Inuit, had moved into the region and were thriving. The Inuit possessed a technology and a lifestyle perfectly adapted to the Arctic environment. They built kayaks and umiaks for hunting sea mammals, used sophisticated toggle harpoons, and wore layered, waterproof sealskin clothing. The Norse, by contrast, stubbornly clung to their European identity. They wore woolen clothing unsuitable for wet, icy conditions, continued to farm in a landscape increasingly hostile to it, and their archaeological sites show little evidence that they adopted the superior hunting techniques of their neighbors. There appears to have been minimal cultural exchange and possibly even conflict. This failure to adapt, to learn from the people who knew the land best, may have been their ultimate undoing. They were trying to replicate a Scandinavian way of life on the edge of the world, and when that world changed, their rigid cultural template became a death sentence. The last Norse Greenlander did not simply walk away into the snow. Their end was a slow, complex unraveling, a lesson in what happens when a society finds itself trapped between a changing environment, a collapsing economy, and an unwillingness to change its core traditions. Why did a people who had braved the North Atlantic for centuries ultimately choose to die out rather than transform? Their story is a hauntingly recent echo of a civilization lost, not to myth but to its own inflexibility. The same landscape that offered a new start for European settlers also presented a profound riddle. Scattered across the river valleys from Ohio to Mississippi were enormous earthen sculptures, pyramids that rivaled small mountains, and vast geometric shapes only visible from the sky. To the newcomers, these earthworks were simply too grand, too complex to be the work of the Native American peoples they were systematically displacing. Their own preconceptions could not allow for such sophisticated artistry and engineering, so they invented a convenient fiction, the myth of a lost, fair-skinned mound builder civilization. This imaginary race of advanced architects and astronomers was said to have been brutally wiped out by savage indigenous hordes, a narrative that served a chillingly practical purpose. It painted the continent as a land without a deep, continuous history. Its true masters tragically vanished, thereby justifying the seizure of the land from its actual, living stewards. This was a story crafted not from evidence, but from the desperate need to legitimize a new world order. We now know, through decades of meticulous archaeology, that these incredible mounds were constructed by the direct ancestors of modern Native American nations. Sites like Cahokia, which flourished around the year 1050, was a metropolis larger than contemporary London, a thriving hub of trade, ceremony, and celestial observation centered around the colossal Monk's Mound, a 10-story earthen pyramid that still dominates the Illinois landscape. The rise and fall of these complex societies was a slow, cyclical process driven by environmental shifts and social evolution, not a single, violent invasion. The real mystery of the mounds is not who built them, but why we were so determined to invent a fictional builder. It forces us to confront a difficult question: how do our own deep-seated biases blind us to the truth, transforming magnificent human achievements into political weapons to justify conquest? The true legacy of the mound builders is not one of a lost white race, but of a resilient indigenous heritage whose monumental works still shape the American heartland, a testament to a pattern of cyclical rise and fall that we see echoed in the most unexpected places. The dense canopy of the Amazon holds more than just life. It guards the ghosts of unfinished quests. Percy Fawcett was a man of his time, a seasoned explorer for Britain's Royal Geographical Society, who had mapped uncharted borders and developed a deep respect for the jungle's dangers. Yet it was an old document known as Manuscript 512 that transformed him from a surveyor into a visionary. This Portuguese manuscript, found in a Rio de Janeiro library, described a band of explorers in the 18th century stumbling upon a ruined city deep in the interior. They wrote of a grand plaza, a towering black stone archway, and buildings adorned with cryptic hieroglyphs, their silver-laden interiors gleaming in the sun. For Fawcett, this was not mere folklore. It was a crucial piece of a puzzle he was already assembling from his own travels. He had seen strange, geometric earthworks and heard indigenous accounts of ancient, stone-built cities. He synthesized these clues into a single, burning conviction, a place he called simply Z. This was not the conquistadors' El Dorado of passive gold, but a sophisticated, complex civilization lost to the jungle, a discovery that would rewrite the history of the Americas. His final expedition in 1925 was meticulously planned, intended to be his definitive journey. He ventured into the Mato Grosso region with his eldest son Jack and Jack's friend Rolly Rimmel, deliberately cutting ties with the outside world to prevent being followed. The last communication from the party was optimistic, suggesting they were on the verge of a great discovery. Then silence. They vanished without a trace, swallowed by the same green wilderness they sought to conquer. The mystery of their fate, a riddle wrapped in a legend, ignited a century of speculation and countless rescue missions that only added to the body count, cementing Fawcett and his city of Z as one of the most tantalizing exploration tragedies of the modern era. For decades, he was dismissed as a deluded fool, a man driven mad by obsession. But the jungle had the last laugh. Recent archaeological breakthroughs powered by Lydia technology have revealed the truth Fawcett died pursuing. The Amazon was indeed home to vast, complex settlements, interconnected networks of towns, roads, and ceremonial centers that supported large populations. The city of Z, as a single, isolated metropolis of silver, may have been a romantic ideal, but the reality of a distributed, sophisticated urban civilization was real. Fawcett was not entirely wrong. He was simply looking for a single chapter in a book we are only now learning to read. His story forces a haunting question. Was he a visionary who saw a truth others were blind to? Or was he ultimately a victim of that very vision, a man consumed by a dream that was both real and just out of reach? His unfinished quest stands as a permanent monument to the human spirit of discovery, a reminder that the greatest mysteries are often defined not by their solution, but by the profound and sometimes perilous search for answers. 5,000 years ago, a bustling port city thrived where the waters of the Mediterranean now lie calm. Off the coast of southern Laconia in Greece, the sunken city of Pavlopetri rests on the seafloor, its streets and buildings preserved not in myth but in silent stone. This is not the concentric rings of Atlantis, but a tangible, fully mapped Bronze Age town, the oldest submerged city known to our world. Its discovery reveals a complete urban plan, a grid of foundations, courtyards, and tombs that once housed a vibrant community of the Mycenaean civilization. Here, merchants traded goods from across the ancient world, and families lived their lives along streets that now guide only schools of fish. The city did not vanish in a single day of fire or quake. Its end was a slow, inexorable process, a gradual surrender to rising sea levels and the relentless settling of the earth. Over centuries, the waters crept in, first flooding the lower streets, then claiming homes and public squares until the entire city was abandoned to the sea, its very name forgotten. Pavlopetri offers a different kind of mystery, one not of sudden divine punishment, but of a creeping environmental reality. It shows us that a civilization can fade not with a bang, but with a whisper, its people slowly retreating inland as their world literally sinks beneath the waves. This real-world submersion provides a hauntingly relevant blueprint. For millennia, climate change and geological shifts have dictated where and how humanity can live, drowning entire chapters of our history in the process. As we look at our own modern coastal megacities, facing the threat of rising oceans, Pavlopetri stands as a silent, sobering sentinel from the past. Its empty streets are a question etched in stone and water, asking what we might be forced to leave behind if we fail to learn from the slow-moving tragedies of those who came before. Every vanished city we have explored shares a single, haunting question. Why do these empty places, these silent kingdoms, hold such a powerful and enduring grip on our collective imagination? These stories of lost worlds are far more than simple history or entertainment. They function as profound cultural Rorschach tests, revealing our deepest anxieties and our most fervent hopes. In the sunken rings of Atlantis, we see our fear of sudden collapse, a warning that even the most advanced society can be brought low by its own hubris. The golden dream of El Dorado mirrors our own complicated relationship with wealth and the destructive power of obsession. The quiet, drowning streets of Pavlopetri whisper a chillingly modern lesson about the slow, inexorable force of environmental change. Each legend allows us to explore our own potential for disaster from the safety of a narrative, a story about someone else that feels terrifyingly personal. Psychologically, they tap into a fundamental human need for mystery. In a world that often feels fully mapped and explained, these lost civilizations promise that there are still blank spaces, that history is not a closed book but a manuscript with missing chapters. They fuel our innate curiosity, driving explorers like Percy Fawcett into the jungle and inspiring scientists to scan the seafloor with lasers. This is not just an external quest for ruins, it is an internal search for meaning. We long for a world that is not yet finished, where discovery is still possible. Perhaps most importantly, these myths serve as timeless cautionary tales. The story of Iram of the Pillars, buried by the desert for its arrogance, or the Norse of Greenland, who faded away due to their own inflexibility, are not just ancient history. They are stark reminders of the fragile threads that hold our own societies together. They warn us about the consequences of ecological neglect, of social inequality, and of believing our own power is permanent. In an age of overwhelming information, the persistent myth of the lost civilization is a crucial counter-narrative. It insists that not all knowledge has been captured, that there are still profound truths hidden in the earth, waiting for the right moment or the right technology to be pulled back into the light and change our understanding of everything. Our journey ends, but the silence of these lost worlds still speaks volumes. From the sunken spires of Atlantis to the silent mounds of Cahokia, these 25 forgotten civilizations weave a profound tapestry of human ambition, creativity, and fragility. Whether born from historical fact or powerful fancy, their stories all teach us about the universal cycles of rise and fall that govern every society. They remind us that every civilization, no matter how grand or seemingly permanent, will eventually leave behind a legacy. Sometimes that legacy is carved in stone, and other times it survives only in the whispered threads of a story passed down through generations. The true value of exploring these lost worlds is not merely in the potential discovery of their physical ruins. It is in the deeper understanding we gain from their disappearance. Each one offers a lesson about resilience in the face of environmental change, the necessity of adaptation when old ways fail, and the enduring power of the human spirit to imagine and create, even when its works are destined to be reclaimed by jungle, sea, or sand. Let these tales be a call to thoughtful preservation, a reminder to protect the fragile wonders we have now. May they also inspire us to listen more closely to the echoes of those that are gone, learning from their triumphs and their ultimate failures. Thank you for exploring these profound mysteries with me. If this journey into the forgotten has sparked your curiosity, subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas. I would love to hear which lost civilization captured your imagination, so please share your favorite in the comments